Today, Serge is meeting with Jim and a few people from the East County Hive, and we are going to take the bees out of a nuke and put them into a top bar hive. So Serge has made a template of the inside of the hive, because he feels like the dimensions that Jim has given him are not exactly accurate. So they are remeasuring, but we're taking the bees out of a nuke, which is a Langstroth design, and putting them into a top bar hive.
What you will have is the original comb of the colony turned back to fit in here, and so that the bees essentially are still at home right away, even though we transfer them, and we will have to just tweak the shape of the comb so that it fits. That's what it amounts to. And the bees will be in their own, cradle and comb and all of that. There are several ways of doing that. We could just simply shake the bees again, but we're not going to do that. We're going to give them their own stuff.
If you did a shake,
yeah,
that's equivalent of like having a package. The queen would be in there. Yeah. They would start making their own comb from scratch.
Yep.
There would be no larvae.
Serge is placing the follower board between two top bars, and so this way he can get them, the bees in there already. The top bars are spaced exactly the distance between the distance of the frames, of the Langstroth frames. He just poured in the rest of those bees. So he's got two frames now, both filled with brood and bees. And by the way, these bees did come from Serge's apiary, so they are, Jim's house is around the corner from Serge, so we're trying to...
2 miles away.
2 miles away, so they're within 2 miles, and so this is what we are trying to do here with our East County cluster, is to keep the bees within the survivor stock area.
That's the queen right here.
There is the queen.
Right here.
Okay, yes, I do.
So Serge has now 3, 6, 7 frames in there, and he has not put the follower boards in. There are follower boards in top bar hives, and this is one of them. It's a solid board. Thank you for pointing that out. And in fact, Nadia is going to really point it out perfectly for us. Yes, thank you. Now Serge is going to pour the bees in so that they are going to say, okay, we are home, even though they don't like the size of those frames yet. Okay, so Serge has his template, and this is his workspace, and he's got his tools that he needs, and he is getting ready to cut that.
And this is bee bread and nectar. So the brood is really valuable. So I'm going to be sliding my template as much as possible to this side here to keep as much of the brood as possible. And the bee bread, we can return it to the bees, but it doesn't have to be on the comb like that. So that's not a problem. You see how off-centered it is? It's just for that purpose. So the template is made to match the shape of the bar hive, and it is reduced by the bee space here. So by the time I cut these here, the comb should fit and still leave the gap that is necessary to allow the bees to go around the comb and between the
walls of the
hive, yes,
and the comb. I mean, bees like to get from one comb to the next, so
right.
They need a little space to do that. So now Serge is using his powerful trimmers to actually cut through the top bar Or is that the bottom bar?
That's the top.
Yeah, thank you. And
I've cut these before.
Oh yeah, it has wires.
aha, that's the wires.
And
Go ahead. Say anything you want to, but it is on film.
We're going
Okay.
to try two things here. We're going to try one type with tying the comb to the bar here. I'm going to center it this way, and the other one by screwing it.
Oh, I see what you're doing now.
So
This becomes the
where in the stone?
the wedge part.
In
Yeah.
So
See
that's
this
why you wanted
wooden
it
piece
flat.
down here?
Oh, okay.
that corresponds.
So in the Langstroth hive, you rubber band it, and you can do that because you have a frame that has a top and a bottom and sides, and you can just put that rubber band around.
These get used to being
But in the top bar hive, you have to have something to attach that to. So he is going to try now to do it with, he's got a
so he's
metal
wiring
wire.
this one.
Come here, Nadia. Tell what's happening. What's he doing? Go ahead.
He's wiring through the comb around the top bar that he cut off and around the top bar for the hive. The
Now-
greatest thing is how he's using this as the spacer
Yes.
so that the bees are getting used to the hive before the top bars are set up.
And I think it calms them down too, because the extraction is not so hard on the hive. Okay, so we've got the East County cluster working on this, and Serge has just pulled a new frame that he is going to now use a different technique, the second technique, which is to
three. Choose pipe.
So here I'm choosing
to drill a hole through the top bar, and it will go down into. So what we're talking about is really cutting those wires that Serge has had inside the Langstroth frame to stabilize the comb in a Langstroth design. But now we need to cut through those because we are not needing that anymore. We're going to a top bar design.
I brought different types of combs here. Actually, that's the way it happened in this hive. So we could actually see different techniques and different difficulties brought in by the
Yeah.
original equipment.
So he's really making sure that he has brood, pollen, nectar, and all the components that you would need. It's going to be interesting to see what Serge does with the leftover comb, but I'm sure he'll get to that after this He-Man breaking of the wood.
You really
Okay, so now he's already drilled the two holes into the top bar. They go all the way through, and he's going to take a screw and attach the top of the Langstroth bar to the top bar
But they're not in the right spot
with two screws. So this is perfect. So those are the two techniques. Okay, so I think he just drilled the hole a little deeper. There he goes, and now he's going to attach it.
You hold it firmly.
Where did the original bees come from?
The original bees that he's taking out of that nuke are from Serge's apiary.
Ah, okay.
And one of the things that we're really trying to do, Susan, because you haven't been to some
There's
of
a
our...
young bee being born.
You can see the antenna. And another one here. You have 3 bees being born at the same time here.
So, Susan, the reason why we're doing this is there's a whole thing called survivor stock. Okay, so that means that those bees that have survived through at least 1 or 2 winters, those are strong hives. They're not treated, and what we're trying to, they are local. So the bees in East County, for instance, especially Glen Ellen and Kenwood, are more acclimated to our microclimate, as opposed to, say, Petaluma bees. So if we get a swarm in Petaluma, then those bees are not acclimated to our area. And what we're trying to do is to really go with survivor stock. That stock that survives in our microclimate. And that's one of the reasons for making these regional cluster groups.
If you don't pay attention.
Okay, so he's moving those frames over now and adjusting where they are going to have their final resting places. And in doing that, he's probably looking at the kind of brood and whether they need nurse bees on it, where the food is. He wants to put them in such a way that they have easy access to that food. And, sorry about that, those top bars get a little sticky. Now that is the follower board, or the end board of this hive, and he wants to kind of keep it open because the bees are not all in there
You
yet.
can see them going in.
Yes.
You can see them walking in, so we're going to give them the time while
So they are kind of going towards where the brood is. Many of them have pollen on their elbows and their little baskets. Many of them are fanning. So we know there is a queen because Serge saw that. And they're going to hopefully go into their hive. So it's kind of interesting. Everybody is around the table working. We all have our veils on, and Serge has no veil, no gloves, and guess what? No smoker. Oh boy. Can you see the bees everywhere? It's amazing.